Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Caleb always believed he'd found the perfect partner in Brenda to share his life with. They'd met in college, married young, and built a solid life together in a quiet suburb of Ohio. Two little girls, 6-year-old Emma and 4-year-old Sophie, completed the picture of what seemed like a happy family. Caleb worked as an operations manager at a logistics company, a stable job that allowed Brenda to stay home and care for the girls. For years, this routine worked perfectly. Brenda seemed content with domestic life, was actively involved in the girls' school, and kept the house always tidy. But something changed when Sophie started full-time preschool. Brenda began showing signs of restlessness, talking about how much she missed intellectual challenges and having an identity beyond being a mom and wife. Caleb, always understanding, encouraged her to pursue something fulfilling. That's how Brenda decided to go back to school and enrolled in an evening law program at a nearby college. Caleb adjusted his schedule to pick up the girls on Brenda's class days and took on more household responsibilities without complaint. He wanted to see her happy and fulfilled, and believed supporting her dreams would only strengthen their marriage. 6 months later, Brenda landed an internship at a prestigious law firm downtown Cleveland. The news was met with celebration. Caleb took the family out to dinner, and Brenda couldn't stop talking about the opportunity. The internship was unpaid, but it offered valuable experience and networking in the legal field. She'd be directly supervised by Richard Callahan, a senior attorney specializing in corporate law, with over 20 years of experience and an impeccable reputation. From day one, Brenda came home brimming with excitement. Richard this, Richard that. He was brilliant, patient, dedicated. She called him her mentor with a frequency Caleb initially found natural. After all, it made sense for an intern to admire her supervisor. But as weeks passed, something about the way Brenda talked about Richard started to bother Caleb. There was an unusual eagerness in her voice, a different kind of sparkle in her eyes whenever she mentioned his name. She began coming home later and later, always with plausible excuses, meetings that ran long, cases that needed reviewing, urgent research Richard had requested. Caleb accepted her explanations, though a small seed of suspicion began to grow in his chest. Brenda also changed her appearance. She started waking up earlier to get ready more carefully, choosing more elegant clothes and wearing elaborate makeup even on days she claimed would be spent doing internal office work. She bought new shoes, designer handbags, and even switched perfumes. When Caleb commented on the changes, Brenda explained that she needed to make a good professional impression, that the corporate environment demanded flawless presentation. Caleb wanted to believe her, but the feeling that something was wrong wouldn't leave him. Their conversations became more superficial. Brenda seemed distant, lost in thoughts she didn't share. She compulsively checked her phone, smiling at the screen in a way Caleb hadn't seen directed at him in months. When he asked if everything was okay, she'd respond with an automatic smile and a, "Yeah, just tired." Intimacy at night practically disappeared. Brenda always had an excuse: she was exhausted, stressed about a case, needed to wake up early. Caleb tried to be patient, reminding himself she was under pressure, adjusting to a demanding new routine. But the emotional distance was palpable, and he increasingly felt like a stranger in his own home. One Wednesday night, Brenda said she'd be working late again. It was the third time that week. Caleb put the girls to bed, cleaned the kitchen, and sat in the living room trying to watch TV, but couldn't focus. Around 10 p.m., he heard a notification from Brenda's phone, which she'd forgotten on the dresser when she left in a hurry. He ignored it, but a few minutes later another alert came through, then another. Caleb went upstairs, driven by a restlessness he could no longer control. The phone was lit up, showing message previews. The name on the screen was Mentor Richard. The first message read, "I can't wait to see you tomorrow." The second, "That hotel near the office is booked for us." The third, "You make my life so much more interesting." Caleb felt his blood run cold. His hands shook as he picked up the device. He knew Brenda's phone password, they'd never had secrets, or so he'd thought. He unlocked it and opened the conversation. What he found was devastating. Months of intimate messages, plans for secret meetings, passionate declarations, and provocative photos Brenda had sent to Richard. There were messages where she said she'd never felt so alive, so desired, so understood. Messages where Richard praised her body, her intelligence, saying she deserved far more than what she had. Caleb had to sit down on the bed to keep from collapsing. The betrayal wasn't recent, it had started just 3 weeks after Brenda began her internship. All those nights working late, all those urgent meetings, it had all been lies. He scrolled through the chat until he found hotel addresses, dates, and times. He took screenshots of everything, sent them to his own phone, and put Brenda's device back exactly where he'd found it. When Brenda came home just before midnight, Caleb was sitting on the living room couch in total darkness. She opened the door, turned on the hallway light, and jumped at the sight of him sitting there, motionless, watching her. "Caleb, you scared me. Why are you still up?" He didn't answer right away. He just watched as she took off her coat and hung up her bag. Brenda seemed uneasy with the silence. "Is everything okay? Are the girls all right?" Caleb turned on the living room light and pointed to the spot beside him on the couch. "Sit down. There's something you need to tell me." Brenda frowned but obeyed, perching tensely on the edge of the sofa. "About what?" Caleb pulled out his own phone and opened his photo gallery. Without saying a word, he showed her the screenshots of her messages with Richard. Brenda turned pale instantly. Her hands began to tremble, and she reached for the phone, but Caleb pulled it away. "Don't bother explaining right now. I've read it all. Months, Brenda. Months of lies and betrayal while I took care of our daughters, kept the house running, rearranged my whole life so you could chase your dream. And was this the dream? Sleeping with your boss in cheap hotels while I waited for you at home?" Brenda started crying. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to speak, but her words came out broken. "Caleb, I didn't want it to happen like this. It was a mistake. I was confused. He made me feel special, valued." Caleb let out a bitter laugh. "Valued? You destroyed our family, lied to me every single day, looked our daughters in the eyes while cheating on their father, and your excuse is that he made you feel valued?" He stood up, unable to stay seated next to her any longer. "You know what hurts the most? It's not even the physical betrayal. It's that you looked me in the eye every day, pretended everything was fine, kissed our girls before leaving to meet him. You lived a complete lie and still had the nerve to come home and sleep next to me like nothing was happening." Brenda dropped to her knees, clutching his legs. "Please, Caleb, forgive me. It was a terrible mistake. I'll end things with him, I'll quit the internship, I'll do anything. Don't let our family fall apart over this." Caleb stepped back, repulsed by her desperation. "Our family is already over, Brenda. You ended it the moment you chose to betray everything we built. And no, you won't be the one to break it off with him. I'll do that for you." The next morning, Caleb woke up early. Brenda had spent the night in the guest room, crying. He made breakfast for the girls, dropped them off at school, and then drove into downtown Cleveland. He arrived at the law firm where Brenda interned just before 9 a.m. At the front desk, he asked to speak with senior partner Jonathan Brenner. The receptionist hesitated, but Caleb was firm. "Tell him it's about an urgent ethical matter involving one of the firm's attorneys. He'll want to see me." 15 minutes later, Caleb sat in a luxurious conference room across from Jonathan Brenner, a 60-year-old man with gray hair and a serious expression. Caleb didn't waste time. He placed his phone on the table and showed him the messages between Brenda and Richard. "My wife is an intern here. Richard Callahan, a senior attorney, has been having an affair with her for months. Here's the proof, explicit messages, hotel meetups, everything documented. I figured you'd want to know that one of your lawyers is using his position to have a sexual relationship with an intern under his supervision. Jonathan Brenner read the messages with a steadily darkening expression. When he finished, he adjusted his glasses and looked at Caleb with a mix of embarrassment and professional concern. Sir, I deeply regret the personal situation you're facing. This is completely unacceptable and violates every ethical policy of our firm. I'll launch an internal investigation immediately. Richard will be suspended from his duties today, and your wife's internship will be terminated. The firm does not tolerate this kind of conduct. Caleb nodded. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. Before he left, Jonathan Brenner added, if you need legal assistance with your divorce proceedings, our firm can refer you to specialized colleagues. Given the circumstances, I'll personally ensure you have access to the best professionals available. Caleb thanked him and left the office with a sense of partial justice. But there was still one more person who needed to know the truth. From Brenda's phone messages, Caleb learned that Richard Callahan was married and had 3 children. His wife, Patricia, taught music at a private school. Caleb found her profile on social media and sent her a direct message, polite but straightforward, my name is Caleb. I'm married to Brenda, your husband's intern. I need to speak with you about something important. I have information I believe you deserve to know. Patricia replied within an hour, asking him to call. The conversation was painful for both of them. Caleb shared everything, the messages, the hotels, the dates. Patricia listened in silence, only letting out heavy sighs now and then. When Caleb finished, she said, her voice choked with emotion, I already suspected something. He's been acting strange, distant. But I wanted to believe I was imagining things. Thank you for having the courage to tell me. Most men wouldn't have. Caleb hung up carrying a heavy weight. He'd just shattered 2 marriages in a matter of hours, but he knew the destruction hadn't started with him, it had begun with Brenda and Richard's selfish choices. In the days that followed, everything unraveled quickly. Richard was formally fired from the firm after the internal investigation confirmed the inappropriate relationship with an intern. The firm couldn't risk a harassment lawsuit or a public scandal that would tarnish its reputation. Brenda's internship was terminated with no possibility of professional references. Future employers calling the firm about her performance would only be told she'd been dismissed for disciplinary reasons. In the legal community, especially in a city like Cleveland where everyone knows everyone, the news spread fast. Brenda was marked. Patricia Callahan filed for a contested divorce, seeking substantial alimony and full custody of their children. Richard, who'd always flaunted a comfortable lifestyle, watched his world collapse. He lost his job, his family, and the reputation he'd built over decades. Caleb hired a family law attorney. With irrefutable proof of Brenda's infidelity, the divorce moved relatively quickly. Brenda tried to negotiate shared custody of the girls, but Caleb was unwavering. He presented messages where Brenda told Richard she sometimes completely forgot about the girls when she was with him, that she felt freer and more alive away from domestic routine. He also showed records of nights she'd lied about working when she was actually at hotels. The judge, considering Brenda's demonstrated emotional instability and the fact that she'd prioritized an affair over her parental responsibilities, granted Caleb primary custody. Brenda was given supervised visitation on alternating weekends until she could prove financial and emotional stability to take on more responsibility. The division of assets also favored Caleb. The house, purchased before the marriage and titled solely in his name, remained his. Brenda got the used car and some furniture. She had to move back in with her parents, into a small suburban apartment, and took an administrative job at a veterinary clinic, far from any legal aspirations. Emma and Sophie, still too young to fully grasp what had happened, sensed that something had changed. Caleb made a point never to speak badly of Brenda in front of them, but he made it clear their mother had made choices that hurt the family. Over time, the girls adjusted to their new routine. Caleb hired a babysitter for when he needed to work and reorganized his entire life around his daughter's needs. He wasn't interested in new relationships. His priority was giving the girls the stability Brenda had shattered. On weekends when Brenda had visitation rights, she'd show up at the supervised meeting spot in the park, always with dark circles under her eyes, unkempt hair, and deep sadness in her gaze. The girls played with her, but there was a distance that hadn't been there before. Brenda tried to rebuild their trust, but it was hard to compete with their father's constant, devoted presence. 6 months after the divorce, Caleb received a message from Brenda. She asked to talk, saying she was in therapy, understood the gravity of what she'd done, and wanted at least a chance to explain her actions without the heat of the moment clouding things. Caleb hesitated but agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop. Brenda arrived on time, wearing simple clothes and no heavy makeup. She looked smaller, more fragile, completely unlike the confident woman she used to be. They sat at a corner table, and for several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, Brenda began. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Caleb. Or even for the girls to forgive me someday. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did. It wasn't your fault, it was nothing but my own insecurities and selfishness. I felt invisible for so long, just a mom, just a wife, and when Richard gave me attention, I clung to it like it was my only chance to be someone more than who I was. But I traded everything that mattered for an illusion. I lost you, I lost my daughters, I lost my dignity. And I have to live with that every single day." Caleb listened without interrupting. When she finished, he sighed. "I believe you're sorry, Brenda. But regret doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't restore trust or rebuild what was broken. You made conscious choices, every single day, for months. And each one of those choices was a stab in the back to me and our family. I can't look at you and feel anything but disappointment." Brenda nodded, wiping away tears. "I know. I just wanted you to know how truly sorry I am. And that, if the girls ever ask, you can tell them it was all my fault." Caleb stood up, leaving money on the table for the coffees. "I'll never use our daughters against you, Brenda. But I won't lie to them either. When they're old enough to understand, they'll know the truth. And they'll draw their own conclusions." He walked out of the cafe without looking back. That was the last deep conversation they ever had. Months turned into years. Caleb rebuilt his life with patience and determination. He focused on being the best father he could, attending every school meeting, every recital, every small milestone the girls reached. He learned how to braid hair, pick matching outfits, pack healthy lunches, and invent bedtime stories. The girls thrived under his care, growing into secure, happy children. Brenda continued her visits, but the emotional distance was never fully bridged. She eventually landed a better job, stabilized financially, and even started a new relationship. But the mark of betrayal followed her. She never worked in the legal field again in Cleveland. Richard Callahan also rebuilt his life, but far more modestly. He lost his house in the divorce, had to pay high alimony, and watched his children grow up resenting him. He found work as a legal consultant for a small company, far from the spotlight and glory he once knew. Caleb, meanwhile, found peace in a simpler life. He didn't seek revenge beyond revealing the truth. He didn't feed hatred, even though the pain took time to fade. He learned that trust is an act of courage, but protecting one's dignity is non-negotiable. He learned that real love isn't just a feeling, it's a daily choice, a commitment, respect. And above all, he learned that people show who they truly are through the choices they make when no one's watching. Emma and Sophie grew up knowing their father had always been there, that he never gave up, that he faced the storm and kept the family together even when everything seemed lost. And that, to Caleb, meant more than any legal victory or elaborate revenge. He'd protected what truly mattered. And he'd emerged from that trial not as a victim, but as a man who faced the truth head-on and rebuilt his life with dignity. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.